Hello everybody! After doing an updated video on my thoughts for No Man's Sky with patch 1.3, I decided to continue playing the game, and one thing that stood out to me was that you need a lot of units, which are the in-game currency, in order to do anything cool, especially possibly buy really cool big ships like the freighters. And with that said, I went on a mission to find an efficient way to farm out units. And I'm happy to report that I return with very good results. So I'm going to show you a incredibly efficient way to farm out credits. It's not the most efficient way, nor is it the highest yielding method. And it's also not the most entertaining method, but it is a very easy way to farm out several million credits every 10 minutes or so. And what we're doing is we're just using the economic system that is already existing within the game. You see, when you go to a space station and you sell an item to that space station, the next time you sell an item of the same type to that space station, it will be of lower value. You'll get less back from it. And you can take a huge amount of one item and sell it to the space station and bottom out the price for that item. The interesting thing is, you would expect that if you were to go and buy that item a ton from that space station, that price would slowly raise over time, right? That's not the case. It actually stays bottomed out. So we're going to use this to our advantage. So what we're going to do is buy a ton of dynamic resonators and sell them to one singular station to bottom out the price. This station preferably is the whatever space station you have your main base set in. So if your main base is in one system, you want that space station that's in that system to kind of be the one that you're doing this at. Or you could also do it at whatever station has one of your missions in it, because the teleporters in said space stations or your base won't ever forget the teleport spot for your base or for whatever mission you have. So you can always get back to the space station that you're bottoming the price out on. This is important. We'll talk about that in a second. But you want to buy a ton of dynamic resonators and sell them to that one space station. You can do this simply in that singular space station. You can buy the items from the terminal in that space station and from all of the dudes that come flying in the docking bay. You can buy the dynamic resonators from them and then sell them back to that exact same space station. It works the exact same way. And what you're doing is you're just bottoming out that price. It takes roughly 250-ish, from what I can tell, dynamic resonators to bottom out the price on it. You can also do this, by the way, with other items, other common items that are going to be at all space stations. So such as the suspension fluid. In this case, we're doing it with the dynamic resonators, but there's other items that all space stations have that you could do it with. It's just that the dynamic resonators have a really good return yield on them. Once you've done this, you've pretty much done all of the prep that you need to do. You now have one station that you can buy dynamic resonators from at their base price. So it's about minus 23,000%, which is really great. You're just going to buy them super cheap, and then you're going to go to any other system and sell them to that space station. It takes quite a few trips in order to bottom out the price in that new space station, and you can continue to buy from that new one if you wanted to, and then sell them to a different station. But essentially, you're just going to keep coming back to whatever your home station is. Through the use of the teleporter, you're going to go back and forth to whatever system you recently warped to and sell all of the dynamic resonators that you're buying from your primary station to the secondary station. Then, once that price is bottomed out, you find a new system with a new station that you're going to continue to sell all this stuff to over and over and over and over again. And you'll notice that as you do it, the more trips that you make to a singular station, the lower that price will go down in that new station. So you do have to continually find new systems to do this with. And obviously, in order to set all of this up, you're going to need a little bit of units to begin this whole process of bottoming out the price and then moving on and so on and so forth. So by the time you can get to a space station, you should have enough units to kind of start this process. But I would suggest just doing scanning on your home planet that you start on. That will start you off with enough credits to kind of get this process started. But once you start having a ton of equity to do this with, you're able to do it faster and faster, and you're able to then use that money that you're making to buy bigger ships, and those bigger ships will allow you to do this with more of these items. You don't necessarily have to buy out all of the one stock and then move on one station. You can buy out that one stock on that station. If you still have space, you can go to the dudes that are flying in, buy out their stock as well, maybe buy out everybody's stock that flies in until you're completely full, go to the new station and sell it. There are a couple tricks that will help you with this though. The first is that when you sell to a trade market, make sure you do it from your ship first, because your ship is naturally going to have more space in it, right? Things can stack up to 5 in your ship, which is really nice, as opposed to the singular ones in your inventory. So sell from your ship first. It'll sell that huge amount of them at one singular unit price. That means that will drop the price of the ones that are in your inventory. So when you sell those, they'll be at a lower price, but you'll end up getting a lot more money by selling the large amount first than the smaller amount from your inventory. The second tip is to always check blueprint vendors when you reach a new station. You're wanting to look out for a couple things. The first is an economic scanner, so that way you can kind of see what the economies of systems are before you even warp to them, which is really nice. This serves two purposes. One, you're typically going to sell things at a little higher of a price to systems that are doing better economically, and the ships that fly into those space stations are going to be of a higher quality. So if you're at a very profitable system, you will find that a lot more S-class ships are flying into the docking bay, which allows you, if you have the money, which you're getting from doing this method, to buy a better ship, a ship with a much higher inventory, so you can kind of speed this process up even more. But at the blueprint vendors, you're also looking for the flora and fauna scanner upgrades. So what you're doing here is, if you can get an upgrade for those different kinds of scanners, the effects stack on them. So the higher scanner type you get for that, the more money you will make for scanning things on planets. So it kind of opens up different routes for you to take as far as making money. So you don't necessarily have to keep doing this process you're seeing in the background over and over and over again. Some people may find it boring. Most people will find it boring. Others will really enjoy this method. But for the most part, it gives you another way to make money. You don't necessarily have to do this all day in order to make the credits that you want. You can, or the units that you want. You could go and get those upgrades for the flora and fauna scanners. And then once you get enough of those, you'll make a couple 100,000 units every time you scan like a rare thing on a new planet. So it allows you to have one way of making money, and when you've kind of exhausted that method and you're kind of bored of it, you can then go out into the galaxy and start exploring a bit more and continue to make a massive amount of units. So always check the blueprint vendor when you reach a new system. And my last tip that will help with the tedium of this process, as I mentioned earlier, is to have something on in the background that you're watching. Of course, I'm going to suggest watching some of our series. They're really nice to just have on like another monitor or on your phone or something nearby that you can focus on that and not what you're doing on the game, because the game is it's an automated process. After you've done it a couple times, you never really have to worry about what you're doing anymore. It just kind of is muscle memory and you're just kind of going through the motions. So if you have something to watch, it makes it quite a bit easier to do. So again, I would suggest watching some of our series. We have some really long series that won't exhaust in the amount of time that you're doing this, such as, our Mass Effect series or Dragon Age, or even better, you should check out the Life is Strange series, because Life is Strange Before the Storm is coming up rather soon. And if you wanted to watch, a series on a new game, then catch up on our Life is Strange series before that ends up coming out in the next week or so. Once you've done this method enough and you're sick and tired of doing it, you should have enough units to go do other methods of farming. You can go build up your base, do actual farming, farm out plants, and then create items with those plants that will allow you to sell those back to stations and kind of have something similar that we have going on here, except you typically won't be able to buy those items back from the station and sell it to other ones. But you should be able to, do some crafting like that. Maybe be doing the crafting on the side as you're jumping from system to system. Eventually you go back to your base, you find all the stuff that you're crafting, and you use that as a supplement for additional money per hour. Another thing that you can do, which is fairly nice, is to go and do the guild missions. So get a really high reputation with them, kind of max out your reputation, and then utilize those missions, those high level missions, to get yourself some extremely high level crafting plans, and then use those things that you can make with those high level crafting plans to essentially make even more money. So it's just kind of one of those things that compounds upon itself. This method, again, isn't the most efficient, it isn't the most fun, but it is an easy way of getting enough units to be able to do other things with. And on top of that, it is very easy to utilize this method as a primary source of generating your units while you have other ways, such as your farming, happening in the background while you're doing all of this. So that way you have multiple sources of units coming in at once. It increases the efficiency of your actual farming. But if you have any other really efficient methods that you would like to share, put them in the comments below so that way everybody can kind of utilize that information and potentially pair it up with this system that we're working on in the background. And also, if you have any suggestions on how to make this more efficient, let us know. And that would be very helpful for not only me, but everybody else who is continually playing this game. But with that being said, I wish you luck in gathering enough units to buy an awesome freighter, and we shall see you guys next time.